This is Recruiting Unfiltered. He's a Division I player.
Committed for suicide, basically.
We're going to cover the full gamut. Now, roster limits actually become a detriment.
High school athletes need to really open their eyes.
We are here to talk everything recruiting. Recruiting Unfiltered. Hey guys, welcome to Recruiting Unfiltered. I'm Sean Salisbury, National Football Director, along with my guy. What are you laughing at already before I even introduce your name?
You just bring the energy, Sean. I mean, it's just
Not
energy
to,
right out
brother.
of the gate, brother.
There you go. My guy, Robert Cagle, who's the president and also a scout for us. I've been doing this 18 years, one of the experts and as good as there is in the business. When it comes to recruiting and directing your kids, whether you're a club or high school, getting you to the right place and also informing you. And that's what we're here to do today, to educate. We all need educated. It continues to change. Nothing changes faster. And a lot of times, Robert, it's not for the better when it comes to recruiting and getting these kids that don't know where to find a scholarship. And that's why we're here to inform them. Today, Robert, I want to hit hard on roster limits, scholarships, roster increases, scholarship limits. You know, in June, the rule changed of last year, Robert, 7-8 months. So this is the first long recruiting cycle that we're seeing this. And so when somebody comes up to me and says, hey, Sean, man, we got more scholarships, we got more roster spots, and I look at him kind of side-eyed, is that a good thing? And does it work for everybody?
So, Sean, the biggest issue I think we had, with this whole change is the misinformation and misunderstanding of information. And that goes on every day. And that's the thing for me and NSRs we deal with this. I mean, I'll give you two examples of what I mean by this. And I'm going to start with this one first. I had a parent and a coach the other day tell me that, the D2 coaches can't even talk to kids until so-and-so date. Well, that rule got changed in August of 24, and which means D2 don't have any limitations on when they can actually talk to kids about this stuff. And then another conversation was, well, now there's more scholarship opportunities than rosters, and we were talking about volleyball specifically on this particular call. But for us today, that misinformation is out there, and that misinformation is misunderstood many times because your guys that write for ESPN or the guys that are these analysts and people they take a little information, they run with it and start beginning to post and print material on it before they have an understanding of what it actually means. For example, we teased about this last time you and I were together. Yeah, there's a 105 roster limitation now for Division I football. Okay. Well, what people don't realize is your big guys, your power four guys, power five before we condense it to four, they were already carrying 125, 130 guys on a roster because that was their scout team. That was walk-on stuff. That was all the stuff, other stuff. Yeah, they had 85 roster spots to give scholarships for that they give full rides to, but they were already carrying 120 to 125, even 130. So at the end of the day, what everybody doesn't realize is what happened then to those 20 kids. If they were at 125, what happened to those 20 guys that all of a sudden the rules changed? Well, there's 20 less spots now collegiately. So there's a misunderstanding of that. And look, I'll give you another example. The week after the rule changed, okay, and all the stuff came down about roster limits, I'm doing a recruiting seminar at a softball camp, Sean, with 250 girls and all their families are there at this camp. And we've got a Division I coach, and I won't call his name because we did the recruiting seminars together. Well, he has to get up and he tells the group of people, hey, y'all are hearing this idea that the roster limitation has now been increased, that we have 25 scholarships to give now, blah, 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 instead of 12.7. He goes, I need y'all to understand that's incorrect. That's incorrect. I was already carrying 32 to 34 girls on my roster. I had to make 7 phone calls this past week to kids already on my roster to tell them they don't have a spot to come play for me next year. Sean, that's the reality of the roster cuts today. Yeah, we've got some, they increased it for track. They increased it for rowing. We can talk about that all day. But when you start talking about what's really happening with these roster spots, nothing that the NCAA has done in the last 5 years has benefited a high school athlete. Nothing.
Yeah, Robert, it seems to me, I want you to keep finishing this, but it seems to me the on the surface, and you make such a great point about you take a little bit of information and run with it and make it look like a lot before you know the facts. Because I can understand why a 16-year-old kid and their parents who doesn't do what you and I do sit there and say, damn, the roster limits, more scholars. Oh, this is a great thing. Yet now it's not great for the school either because that guy who was your backup now has to play scout team and you put him in harm's way and you may have less people to choose from. So it's that information thing that gets so lost and skewed. And this is at the top of the list of what happens. And you think those kids wanted to take that call because their dream was coming true and that was snatched from them. So this isn't an advantage in most cases.
No, it's not. And when you got coaches, when you got college coaches at Division I level, and now even Division II, because now that trickle down comes down. The roster limits don't necessarily apply to them, but what's happening is the trickle down. What about those kids that were D1 kids that now don't have a D1 home and they're coming down to a D2? Now all of a sudden, some kid out of high school is not going to get that opportunity. So with this whole idea of roster limitations, look, I get it and I understand it, but at the end of the day, it hasn't done anything for us. And I'm gonna use golf as an example. Okay, I mean we're everybody. Well, hey, golf went from 4 point whatever scholarships to now they can do 9. They were already carrying 12 guys on their roster anyway, so now they're having to pick up the phone and cut 3 and call guys they've already verbally committed in the 27 class and 26 class and tell them, I don't have a spot for you because my guys stay in another year. My guy, we don't have the roster spot. All that stuff. So Sean, this whole deal is tough to stomach especially for parents and kids of high school kids. And I think that's the part for me
Right.
that's frustrating is because we get so much misinformation. You and I spend so much of our time daily trying to educate. When I'm having to correct and educate D2 and D1 coaches on their own rules because they don't understand them themselves, then that's the state we're in. If they don't understand what the recruiting rules are, how in the world you expect a parent that's out there trying to navigate this to figure out that murky water? They're not.
Right. Robert, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, if I'm a parent, you've got such great expertise at this. And it feels like you've been doing it for so long, you've got it boxed in where you know the advantages and disadvantages of a lot of these things. But in this specific thing, one thing that is alarming when you say, well, D2 coaches can't talk to you until a certain, no, that's not true. And then it puts that family behind the recruiting process. Now they're a year late because they waited years. Say, whoa, what are you talking about? I could have been doing this 2 years ago. So I'm a family and I got 2 kids that are in high school. And I come to you and say, I have zero idea. I got 2 pretty good athletes and they're good students. I have zero idea about these roster and scholarship, but man, I keep hearing over here that this is going to be great for me. What do I need to do? So we know the what or the why, but now how do I fix this? What's the best way to get out in front of this to make sure that I have an idea? And how quickly or soon should I start to understand this as a parent?
Okay. Man, Sean, you just asked a tiered question that's got multiple layers
Exactly.
to pull back. I mean,
But now
and
think about, and you know this, Robert. Imagine the family that doesn't, and they cost their kids a scholarship because they're 18 months late to the party because they were misinformed. So how do we fix this so the parents are well educated?
I think the best thing to do, and this is something I know you preach, and I preach it as well, is first of all, if you're a parent and you're listening, and you've got a niece or a nephew or a grandson or a granddaughter or whatever the deal is, number one, Sean, it has to start with some type of actual evaluation of a player to understand if the player is good enough to play somewhere collegiately.
Right.
That's the biggest thing that we have. Look, in the world we're in today, right? Of all these guys that play at every level of football, and I mean, you're big in you're a Texas football, high school football in Texas is king, right? I mean, that's where everybody loves that. It's the biggest Friday night lights, whole deal, right? Well, in Louisiana, Alabama, and Georgia, and Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, Friday night football is big too.
Pretty big
But
too.
the
Yeah,
thing
you think?
is, yeah, right. I mean, so at the end of the day, we look at this and these people. Well, my son was an all-state performer. My daughter was an all-state volleyball player. My daughter was an all whatever, all county. My daughter plays for this travel ball team, and we got this particular name on our jersey, and that jersey is supposed to mean something. All that's a bunch of hogwash because if
Right.
the kid isn't good enough to play and don't understand where they fit, then we can't. There's no reason to even start talking about recruiting, and that's the biggest thing that we have. Look, I'm on all these groups on Facebook and Instagram, Sean, volleyball dads and volleyball moms and softball recruiting and all football recruiting in the South. All those pages I'm on, and I get on there and I see people with their opinions. Sean, I'm fixing to tell some people that are gonna hurt some feelings. Okay,
Right.
okay. You and I did the deal the other day about talking about Miami and Indiana. Okay,
Right.
my opinion was Indiana's as strong a team as there's been in years, and they're good. That's an opinion. The fact is, Indiana won. You understand, right? We can have opinions, but we can have facts. In the recruiting world, folks, your opinion doesn't matter. As a parent, as a kid,
And that's hard for people to understand about this, isn't it, Robert? The
they
hard.
can
I imagine you face it all the time.
they
Yeah.
can't fathom that. Well, my daughter, in my opinion, nobody cares what your opinion. It will come down to fundamental skill set, attitude, work ethic, academics, drive, identification, recognition, evaluation, comparison, and can you get to a point where an offer? And if you can't be evaluated properly to understand where you fit, then why are you going to an Alabama camp if you can't play at Alabama? Why are you going to Texas to camp if you can't play at Texas? Why not understand that? And that's a starting point. We'll have to peel back the onions. We don't have enough time today to do that. But here's the bottom line, Sean. You said if you're a family and you got two kids, what do you need to do? You need to get them evaluated by somebody that actually lives in the space every day. I'm not talking about a travel ball or high school coach that's good people with good intentions, and they're wonderful people. I love them. I was a high school coach. I get it. But they don't live in the space every day. They go and coach on the weekend. They talk to a few coaches when they're in a tournament somewhere, and they feel like they're the expert. They're not. They don't breathe it, live it, eat it, and sleep it every single day. So you can't know the nuances that's going on. First, get evaluated. If we don't get evaluated, you don't know what you have as a parent. In fact, most high school and club coaches don't know what a real true Power Four Division One athlete looks like because they haven't had one.
Robert, you made a great point, and it wasn't even on my menu, but I think we need to hit this quickly. You were talking about why go to an Alabama camp if the kid's not in that box, can't play there. And I know that's harsh for some, but unfortunately, we've all had our feelings hurt at some time. And better to get your feelings hurt and get out in front of something than get your feelings hurt late and have nothing to go to. So with that, and parents, we don't mean this because it's not towards everybody, but we all have this when it comes to our kid. Do you run into, when it comes to rosters and scholarships, but even anything with this, that parents' egos get in the way of where their kid is supposed to be recruited at times because they want their kid to go there, but it just doesn't work out? Do you run into to speed bumps with that? And we're all like that, Robert. We just are. But that's part of the evaluation of finding somebody who be outside your box may have a little more understanding of the landscape that's out there. Is that correct?
It is, Sean. It's a very difficult situation. You know, when I'm about to evaluate a player, and I've evaluated on video, and I've looked at them, and it doesn't matter what the sport is.
Right.
And I'm about to have a conversation with mom and dad and the kid to go over that evaluation so they can understand. One of the first things I ask them as an old coach is, are you okay with me telling you what you need to hear instead of what you want to hear? Because they may not be the same. And
Right.
that's my way of informing somebody, look, I'm going to say some things to you that you may not fully understand from the past, but you got to understand them going forward. And I'm going to tell you, Sean, the biggest, we've written articles about this. We've got stuff online about it. D1itis. It's a killer recruiting
Right.
disease.
Yeah. It
It's a,
is.
it's, and it's a, if someone ever wants to know, they can call into your show and they can message us, and we'll be glad to send them a copy of the article D1itis. But folks, the biggest issue is a lot of times parents, they get puffed up about the kid, and they want, because it's a great talking point at the water cooler at work or over the lunch
Right.
pail at the job site or whatever the deal is, and they get to talking about their little Jimmy or their little Susie, and all of a sudden it just gets itself out of hand. I mean, and somebody has to have that conversation with them about the reality of what it is. Look, 0.7%, 0.7% of athletes in any given sport are ever going to play at the Power Four Division One level. 1.2 or 1.3% are ever going to play Division One athletics, period, out of high school. 4.7 or 8% is going to ever play, period, collegiately at any level. And so when we talk about the ego piece of it, parents need to have a little checkup. Understand, look, your kid's a great kid. You love your child. You want the best for your child. Sean, you got kids. I've got kids. Both my
Yep.
kids play Division I athletics. I understand it. Your boys play athletics and sports. At the end of the day, we want what's best for them, but we also have to step back and go, you know what? He's a great player, but he probably can't play at Texas. He's a great player. He might not be able to play at A&M. He's a great player. He may not be able to play at Ole Miss. And so at the end of the day, we have to make sure we have those conversations with people. Those are tough conversations to have, but it goes back to what we started this whole conversation off today is people don't understand what's out there. From roster limits to actually what it takes to play collegiately at the highest level, it's a different animal. And your animal better be different. Your child, that
That's
is.
right. Okay, let's finish with this. You got to give me the one with when going back to roster limits in June when things changed. Give me the one thing that's great about that change, and the one thing that you kind of mentioned it but hit it hard again. The one thing that's not good about it.
Okay. Let's start with the not good, and that way we can end on the good.
I always like that.
The not good is simply that you've already got you've got coaches and universities that are having to cut guys off and had to literally reduce a roster limit to what they were already working with. And
even though it's been increased, that's what people need to understand, right? Yes.
So even though the limit went from 85 to 105 in football Division I, they were already carrying 125, 130 guys. So all of a sudden now we got 20 guys that's going to have to find another place. Those guys got to get in the portal. Those guys got to find another home. And so they're out, which if that means they're out there, that means the recruiting class in high school that they were recruiting now gets pushed down a notch too.
It becomes a domino effect, right? With this, Robert, just boom, boom, it just starts rolling downhill, correct?
It does, and it doesn't stop till you finish that
Right.
kid that was on the bubble of playing collegiately at all, never does ever get on the bubble. They're never going to play because they were just on the bubble. So that's the negative piece. Okay, that's the positive piece is that the NCAA did grant the ability now to universities that have plenty of money to make a decision on what they want to do about their scholarship limits and what they want to do. If they want to roster 105 guys on full scholarship, they can. If their conference and their board of directors votes to do it and they choose to, they can. That's the positive. The positive is that it could be for a handful of kids. It could be more scholarship money for them to offset their education and help get it paid for, all of it possibly. But when you get to the minor sports, everything except men's football, everything except men's and women's basketball, you get past those three big sports, then all of a sudden we're still dealing with it with a head count situation versus a percentage situation, and those get percentages of money, even because they're not all going to fully fund that. So the good is that some kids will get additional money, but those kids that are getting that additional money were already on the roster anyway.
Right.
So that's the good and the bad of that.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Right. Well, next time, among the other things we're going to talk about, I would love for us to inform or help families and kids when you're putting your tape together to be evaluated. Can we please not make it a White Snake or Michael Jackson or a Beyonce music video? Can we teach? Can we do it can just part of our next podcast, Robert, as I'm teasing the next one. Can we say you and I are coaches at any D2, D1, your favorite school? What I'm looking for as a coach when you send me whether it's us at NSR or we're getting it to a college coach, correct? Can we do that just so we give them a blueprint for what they are actually looking for?
I am so laughing at what you're bringing to me today with this, because at the end of the day, I literally had a parent not long ago said, "Did you watch his video?" And I went, "Well, yeah." "Well, did you listen to the music he selected?" And I went, No, because I don't pay attention to the music.
Right.
And also, for all of our kids, right, here's another teaser. If you're having to write on little text on your little film that says "Watch this, wait for it," "Pow," if you have to tell me to wait for it, okay, then you're not used to.
I'm shutting it off. Okay, I'm shutting it off. Okay.
So
yeah,
there's
I'm actually watching
Sean.
it. Yeah.
There's a right way to do this. And it's not make me wait 12 snaps and 12 plays to actually finally see a highlight. So
I know it
what-
looks great and it's cool and there's a time and a place for it, but if you want Mario Cristobal to love your tape, I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't speak for Coach, but for any of us, I'll say if it was me. Now I may stand up and dance at the end and to Beat It by Michael Jackson, but when it comes out, if the music made more of an impact than the tape did, then we got a problem. We'll talk about the focus on, in truth, how we can get you to, well, a step ahead of the other 8,000 that are doing what everybody else is doing. Fair enough. Robert, great stuff today. Great stuff. One of the best in the business of what he does, president NSR, as well as, there's no better recruiter in the country. I am the national football director. He's the president. And we got more to inform you on. No music on your video. Unless, of course, we're celebrating after you just won a national championship. We'll do that next time. This is NSR. This is Recruiting Unfiltered. We got to thank our guy, Brett. To Robert, I'm Sean. We will see you next time. Short, sweet, and informative. Robert, great stuff, brother. We'll talk to you soon.